reading this very important book, The Souls of Black Folk. Can you see The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois? And we're in chapter 9. And the chapter is talking about sons of master and man, sons of master and man. Interesting chapter. It's focusing on the contact between African Americans and white people in this country, blacks and whites in this country. And he basically focuses on the four major ways of contact. The first one is physical proximity. The second one is economic relations. Third is political relations. Fourth is intellectual contact. And the last is religious enterprise. These are the 5 ways black and white people interact in this country. And he just basically focused on the several types of interactions. And I'll just look at some places that struck me. Uh, First is, he says, a Negro slum may be in dangerous proximity to a white quarter. A white slum might be planted in a respectable Negro quarter. But he goes on to point out that you'll never have respectable whites and blacks together, or at least in 1890. And it's rare. It's rare to have that. And even today, you see that whenever that tries to happen, there's constant what we call a white flight. This is 1890. He's saying this, and it's not that much different today. Something that really, really struck me was this part here. What the black laborer needs is careful personal guidance, group leadership of men with hearts in their bosoms to train them to foresight, carefulness, and honesty. I'm going to read this whole statement right here. He says, after emancipation, it was the plain duty of someone to assume this group leadership and in the training of the Negro laborer. I will not stop here to inquire whose duty it was, whether it was the ex-master who profited from his unpaid toil, or the northern philanthropist who persisted and brought on the crisis, or the government whose edict freed the bondsmen. I will not stop to ask whose duty it was, but I insist it was the duty of someone to see that these worksmen, he's talking about former slaves, were not left alone and misguided without capital, without land, without skill, without economic organization, without even protection of the law, order, and decency. They were left in a great land, not to settle down to slow and careful internal development, but destined to be thrown almost immediately into relentless and sharp competition with the best of modern working men under an economic system where every participant is fighting for himself, and too often utterly regardless of the rights or welfare of their neighbor. I thought that was powerful. He's basically saying slaves with little education, little opportunity, little economics were left to fend for themselves without any training. And whose responsibility was it? Another area that really got me was the talk about, so long as the best elements of community do not feel in duty bound to protect and train and care for the weaker members of their group, they leave them to be preyed upon by swindlers and rascals. And so he's basically saying it's our responsibility as Black people. Um, it's our responsibility as Black people to help ourselves. The best of ourselves is the responsibility to help, or else we'll forever struggle. We cannot depend upon anybody else to empower ourselves. Here's another thing he put: such leadership, such social teaching and example must come from the Blacks themselves. That's it. Like it is imperative that we empower ourselves some way. I think with the help of God only. Here's a second thing he says. So number one, we have to economically and educationally empower ourselves. You have to do it economically and educationally. Empower ourselves. There should be no black child that is uneducated from this point on, in my opinion. Number two, every African American must be handed a ballot. He says we must politically engage. We cannot even easily economically empower ourselves if there is no access to political power. Every black person must have a ballot. Every black person, he says, in 1890, this is W.E.B. Du Bois saying, must vote. You cannot, he says, the purpose of the laws today, in his day, were to eliminate the black man from politics. That's the goal. Eliminate the black man from politics. Number two, um, the nature of the police system at that time was literally to deal with the blacks alone. Like it wasn't about crime; it was really about black people. So the criminals were naturally made as black people. This is 1890. We have to politically engage. And the last thing that he says is there has to be a point in time where African Americans, black people, and white people are equally settled amongst each other, meaning there can no longer be this concept of white flight where you can have the best of black people having the most money and they are still relegated to lesser or the slums or in adjacent to the slums, even if they have economic power. He says this. He says there's the only time that black and white people are together is at the bottom class, right? Whether they be in the saloon, meaning the bar, the gambling hell, the brothel. You never see the color line there. You only see the color line in the upper echelons, and that must cease. Yep. So that's pretty much his commentary about how blacks and whites have engaged in 1890, the issues of it. Even he talks about it even in the religious space. Um, there the segregation uh, can't be right. So physical proximity, economic relations, political relations, intellectual contact, and religious enterprise. African Americans must have equal access to these things if we are to thrive. All right. Awesome, awesome book, guys. I highly encourage the reading of it. See you guys.